Thanks, Eliza. Thanks for sticking around. I won't keep you too long. So Peel's all about the Cobar Basin. We've been exploring in Australia since we floated in 2007. But Cobar became our home in about 2010. And I better grab this. One more. Sorry. I'm going the wrong way, aren't I? Sorry, it's getting late. Sorry. So 418 million shares on issue after 14 years of listed life. So we've kept our capital tight over the journey, no restructures along the way. Market capitalisation at the moment around $100 million with about $11 million cash in the bank. So we're well funded. Our largest shareholder is a gentleman by the name of Josh Pitt. He's also a major shareholder in a number of other companies, including Red Hill Iron, and some of you may be familiar with his deal that he did recently. And I think the interesting thing about that was that it was a company valued at about $40 million about a year ago, and he executed a deal for $400 million about 3 months ago. And that shows how quickly the valuations can change. And I guess it goes to the point someone made before about Equinox being a modest scale company, and then a value recognition took place. And we believe we're in a similar position. St Barbara on the register, just under 10%. Directors with skin in the game from the beginning, and we always participate to the best of our abilities in capital raisings. And Paradise are substantial on the register. A four-man board, myself and Jim Simpson. Jim Simpson, a mining engineer by background, myself exploration geology, and I've been at the helm since the beginning. Jim joined us about 2 years ago, and Jim speaks to our aspirations to be a mining company sooner rather than later. He's a former managing director of Aurelia Metals, our neighbour. And Simon and Graham Hardy, good stewards of the company over the journey, lots of commercial experience, and certainly have been great contributors to the company. So Cobar Basin, it is a world-class metals address. If you're not familiar with it, it's about 8 hours west of Sydney. It's the richest part of the Lachlan Fold Belt in terms of polymetallic endowment. Plenty of copper, gold, silver, lead and zinc has been produced from the district and still remains in resources. We've managed to establish a large land holding, about 3,500 square kilometres, initially starting off around 11 years ago with an 80 square kilometre exploration licence that covers the Mallee Bull discovery. And when we turned up, I guess the consensus that we heard on was that the area was mature, but we've made 3 discoveries in the last decade. Our neighbour has made one a couple of kilometres over the tenement boundary, a deposit called Federation. So the district is anything but mature. And when you look at deposits like CSA, they're quite impressive deposits. So CSA consistently ranks in the top 10 high-grade copper mines in the world, running at about 5% copper head grade. They're down around 1,800 metres below surface, so these things are icebergs, and the bulk of the deposit sits at depth. Certainly not easy to explore, but when you get onto them, they're very high grade in nature. Essentially, it's similar to a VMS camp, but there's a bit of conjecture about the geology, the genesis of them, whether they're VMSs or sort of an orogenic nature, and I'll leave that to the academics. But we love the address. It's been very kind to us. The Mallee Bull discovery back in 2011, 2012, that sucked us in for a number of years to define that deposit, and we've got just under 7 million tonnes at just under 2% copper head grade there. The Wirlong deposit we discovered in 2015, and we're drilling there and at Mallee Bull at the moment, part of our copper first strategy, which I'll go into a bit more in a moment. We acquired the Wagga Tank tenements off MMG back in 2016, and about a year after we acquired that ground, we made the Southern Nights discovery, and again that pulled us into that discovery for a number of years. But we've got this camp scale address. We believe the deposits are the foundations of a new development, a copper focused development as we move forward. Oops. I won't talk about copper. Everyone's a believer, as previously mentioned. So we're very pleased to be in like-minded company. Last year was a year of consolidation for Peel. So we had two joint ventures on the go at the beginning of last year, one with Toho Zinc's Australian subsidiary CBH Resources. That was over half of Mallee Bull. And the other joint venture was with the Japanese government, who were essentially there in support of CBH and Toho Resources on a regional exploration JV. We bought back the other half of Mallee Bull for $17 million last year, and then kind of as a natural result, JOGMEC gave us notice that they were wishing to withdraw from the project, the regional JV, which meant we got Wirlong back at no cost. So it was a great outcome, consolidated our asset base, but also pivoted us from being primarily a zinc exposed company to a copper exposed company. And obviously our resource base grew as a result as well. So our asset base at the moment looks like this. We've got just under 13 million tonnes of global resources at around 1% copper, but obviously a healthy mix of zinc, lead, gold and silver in there as well. We're drilling for maiden resource at Wirlong, and we're getting some great results out of that. And we're hoping that, I guess, with that additional copper mineralisation to our resource base, we'll be closer to the 15 million tonne of resource mark, but also more weighting towards copper. And those resources, the plan for those resources is to underpin our development scenario. We're wanting to become roughly a 1 million tonne per annum producer. Most of the deposits around Cobar are underground, obviously in nature, and our deposits are the same as that. So we're targeting around 15 million tonnes global resources, critical mass, and 1 million tonnes per annum, hoping to get sort of an 8 to 10 year mine life, and starting that mine life on Wirlong and Mallee Bull. So this is what a full polymetallic mill would look like eventually, that we would require with the processing of Wagga Tank Southern Nights ore. But a copper first strategy is a simpler scenario, so it's a lower cost, less complex milling scenario, so lower capital as a result. And it's obviously a simpler story. And we think, you know, as an example, GR Engineering are doing the Abra processing plant. That's a 1.2 million tonne per annum plant and a $70 million fixed cost, is my understanding. So it gives you an idea of the sort of capital involved. You're also up for obviously your mine costs and camps and power, etc. But certainly not a large capital cost scenario. We've also looked at ore sorting, and our deposits appear to be amenable to it. So we're planning on, I guess, once we move into production, essentially the idea would be to review ore sorting as a way to value add to the deposits that we've got. Sorry, one more. So Wirlong. So this is our next copper resource that we're drilling at the moment. We've had 2 diamond rigs going 24/7, essentially since the beginning of the year. That very high tenor chalcopyrite mineralisation I'm holding, it was like a Christmas present. It was a few years back, and I was on site, and the drill core turned up and the lid was still on, straight from the rig, and I lifted the lid, and it was there was about 3.7 metres going 18% copper. That's a style of mineralisation that you get in Cobar. It is something else. There's practically no other sulphides in there, so it's very high tenor, high purity, and consequently we get exceptional metallurgical recoveries. So we achieve sort of plus 95% recoveries to a plus 32% copper concentrate, practically no deleterious elements or certainly no penalties. And so it's highly attractive, and Glencore hasn't parted with CSA, even though it's been up for sale a number of times. And I hear on the grapevine it's because the concentrate's so sweet. It's certainly amongst the best in the world. And we see this as dead ringer. Oh, I've hit the power button somehow. So let me ad lib. So the next slide shows you, if I can hit that, is it just, there we go. shows you the great results we've been getting. You know, these are some of the best results being produced in Australia over the last year. You know, we are in rare company. You know, there's not many deposits producing these sorts of results, and it is tip of the iceberg sort of stuff. They're not easy to explore. You have to drill deep. You generally have to drill diamond, obviously, so it's quite expensive, but the prize is great, and this deposit has every sign of being a CSA analogue. And I look at that and I see an elephant, but that maybe says something about me. Look, it's, you know, we've only drilled the top of this system. Pyrrhotite is a common accessory mineral with Cobar-style deposits, and we've drilled the top of the mag anomaly, and we're hitting this wonderful mineralisation. It's a large-scale system. There's a 3 kilometre long surface geochem anomaly, and we essentially zeroed in on a gravity anomaly that was part of it, so lots of geophysical surveying's gone on. But we're just tapping into what we think is possibly a large-scale system, and if I overlay a CSA example, you know, we've only drilled the top sort of 25–30% of what may be a much larger system. So we're very excited by the future of Wirlong. Mallee Bull was our first discovery, and look, the mineralisation that's coming out of the ground and has come out of the ground from Mallee Bull is wonderful. So just under 7 million tonnes, as I said, at 1.8% copper, so very high grade in global terms. Once you get to about 800 metres below surface, it becomes too expensive to drill from surface. So we're at that next stage, which is upgrading this resource to primarily indicated classification. And these are some of the wonderful drill results we've been achieving over the last 6 months or so. We're planning for the Wirlong resource estimate. I should have mentioned the plan for that is in the next couple of weeks, so that's imminent. And then an upgrade for Mallee Bull around year end or early new year, and moving it to indicated as much as possible. We're certainly, our deposits are all run through stope shape optimisation, so essentially they're mineable resources. So we're not using cut-off grades and just a block model. We're actually putting it through mining simulation. So that's the next cab off the rank. Lots of drill results pending from that as well. Southern Nights Wagga Tank, as I mentioned before, from a few years ago, it's a zinc-rich system, but it's certainly it's got all the metals in it, so zinc, lead, silver, copper, gold. It's more VMS in style, certainly more strike-driven to date in terms of discovery, but the metallurgy on this good as well, certainly same for Mallee Bull. But essentially this gives us, you know, Peel is the sum of the parts, and Southern Nights Wagga Tank gives us a mine life down the track. We're hoping our copper assets will get us through at least the first 5–6 years without discovering any more, and then Southern Nights Wagga Tank will come in after that. And as I mentioned, strike-driven in terms of mineralisation. We see evidence of chimneys, so this one is much more VMS in style in our opinion, and we believe we may have another vent down in this area here, so we really need to get back and continue that exploration, but we're blessed with the problem of too many targets, and at the moment we really want to focus on that copper first strategy. So the forward program, similar to the last two speakers, you know, we're moving towards development decision as quickly as possible without without misstepping. So we're doing all the right work. We occasionally get accused of drilling too much, but I think it's better to drill too much than too little. In the old carpenter's term, measure twice, cut once. You don't want to get run over. So as an investment thesis, you know, we've got high-grade copper. The money's always gone into the ground. We've built this resource base now that we believe will constitute the critical mass for a new development, and we want to deliver a high-grade mining operation, obviously, and do it the right way. Thank you very much. And just quickly, great team on site. New South Wales certainly not the easiest place to work over the last year, particularly the last 6 months, and be remiss if I didn't thank them. So just finish with that note. Thank you.